Okay, today we are going to begin learning quadratic equations. So let's start by naming this lesson 8.1 notes. Let me not use that color because it may be hard to see. Okay. So first of all, understand that quadratic equations is the second power. So x to the second power, right? Or any letter to the second power. The standard form of a quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So you've seen this format many times, especially when you were factoring. You've seen this format. You probably just didn't know that it was quadratic, but it is. Okay, let's get into the graphs. Quadratic equation is going to have a U-shaped graph. So we're going to draw that in a bit. And that U-shaped graph is called a parabola. So let's look at some sketches of quadratic formula. It does say to use your graphing calculator, which we do not have graphing calculators. So I'm just going to quickly make a sketch. X squared plus 2x minus 5 is going to look something like this. Sorry, it should slightly go over to this side. And then a negative x squared plus 3x plus 7 is going to look like something like this. All right, we don't have numbers on our graph or anything, but this is just a rough sketch, okay? All right, if the a in your quadratic equation is a positive number, then the parabola is going to open upward, okay? And if the a is a negative number, then I bet you could guess what's going to happen. It is going to open down. So as you saw in the sketches, that's exactly what happened. Okay. Let's get into some vocabulary now. Your first vocabulary word is axis of symmetry. These words are very important because they, once you learn what they are, the numerical value, the number for it is very important. It tells you exactly what the parabola is going to do, and there's real life context to it as well. In real life problems, these numbers that are associated with the axis of symmetry, the vertex, they're all important in real life problems. So first, an axis of symmetry is a vertical line. So vertical is up and down. It's a vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal sides. Okay? So if I were to take, just looking at my sketches from earlier, sorry, let me turn off low power mode. If I were to look at my sketches earlier, I could see that if I wanted to draw an axis of symmetry, I would have to break the parabola perfectly in half. So like something like this would be the axis of symmetry. And then you would have to know what this number is here to give a value for that. So say like maybe it was -2 right there, because that looks about like -2. Then that would be the axis of symmetry. But I would actually have to plug in this equation to know the actual axis of symmetry. And here in this picture, you can see that this would be the axis of symmetry, something like that, right? Move it over just a tad bit, more like that, okay? All right. Now, the formula for the axis of symmetry is something you are going to have to remember, but it's pretty simple. Axis of symmetry formula is that your x coordinate is going to be equal to negative b over 2a. So you know how I was saying maybe this number is negative 2 here? Well, that's pretty simple to actually figure out exactly what it is, right? You would just do negative b divided by 2a. So if I wanted to do it with this equation here, first understand that my a is 1. So if I wanted to get the axis of symmetry, x equals negative b over 2a, I would be doing x equals negative, and the b is 2, right? And then the a was 1, so 2a would be 2 times 1, giving you negative 2 divided by 2. So the axis of symmetry was actually negative 1, not negative 2, right? So it's very simple to find. Okay, you just got to follow the formula. And I could do the same thing with this problem here. Again, if I wanted to find the axis of symmetry, I would do negative b over 2a. Remember that there is like an invisible 1 here. So that's actually, your a value is negative 1. There we go. Just trying to put it back. So x will equal negative b, and our b is 3, divided by 2a, and a is negative 1. So we have negative 3 up top, and on the bottom you have negative 2. 2 negatives make a positive, so our axis of symmetry is just 3 over 2. Or as a decimal, that would be 1.5. So that means that this number right here is 1.5. And over here, axis of symmetry was negative 1. So this number right here, this x value, is negative 1. That's axis of symmetry. Okay. Let's move on to our next vocabulary word, which is vertex. Okay. So the vertex, let me grab a color. Okay, sorry. So the vertex is referred to as the turning point of the parabola. And that sounds like, I mean, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's where the parabola turns. So going up to our sketches from earlier, try to guess where the vertex is on this picture. The turning point. Okay, so that's actually right here. This is the vertex. It's where the parabola starts to turn to the other direction. So here, this is the vertex, right? Again, where the parabola starts to turn to the other direction. Okay, and some other words that refer to the vertex would be the lowest point on the parabola. The lowest point on the parabola, while it is still the vertex, it's also called the minimum. And the highest point, still the vertex, but you'll guess it's called the maximum point. So try to look at both of these sketches and guess which one is which. Okay? In this picture, the vertex is the minimum. Right? It's the lowest point in the parabola. But in this picture, the vertex is the maximum. It's the highest point in the parabola. All right. So in this lesson, we're going to learn now how to actually sketch a parabola using only the axis of symmetry and the vertex. So using the line that cuts the parabola in half and the vertex, the lowest or the highest point on the parabola. Okay? So first example is y equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. Let's identify first that our a is 1, because there's an invisible 1 here, right, that we know is there even though we don't see it. Remember earlier that if your a is a positive number, then the parabola is going to open upwards. Let's write upwards. Okay. It's going to open upwards. So that's the first thing. Now, let's get the axis of symmetry, and then I'm going to show you how to use the axis of symmetry to find the actual vertex of the graph. So first, axis of symmetry. That formula is x is equal to negative b over 2a. Okay. Our b is 1. I'm sorry. Apologies. Our b is 8, right? You have a here, b, and then c. So our b is 8, and the formula says to do negative b. So you're going to do negative 8. You're going to do the opposite of whatever b is. And divide that by 2 times a. A is 1. So we have negative 8 divided by 2. So our axis of symmetry is negative 4. Okay? Now let's get the vertex. In order to get the vertex, you just found x. Yes, it's the axis of symmetry, but the axis of symmetry goes to the x-axis. So this is actually an x-coordinate. Negative 4 is an x-coordinate. So now we can go ahead and plug in negative 4 to each of our x's in the equation. So I'm going to recopy the equation. It's y equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. And I'm going to replace the x's with negative 4. So I have y equals negative 4 to the second power plus 8 times negative 4 plus 15. At this point, I'm just going to plug that directly into my EOC calculator, right? Because this is the calculator that we are using on screen on the EOC. So we want to save as much time as we can. Negative 4 to the second power plus 8 parentheses negative 4 plus 15. Just checking back to see if I filled that in correctly. And that is correct. So the answer is, as you can see, I can zoom in here and see that the answer is negative 1. So y equals negative 1. Now, would you look at that? You have an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. Well, if you put those two things together, you get a point. And that point is called the vertex. So we're going to put parentheses negative 4, comma, negative 1. Close it. Now let's go do our sketch. Again, this is just a sketch, so don't stress too much about it being straight. You just want to make sure that you have the right vertex and the right axis of symmetry. Okay, so I drew my little coordinate plane. We have the x-axis and the y-axis. Okay. Remember earlier we said it is going to open upwards. The axis of symmetry is negative 4, so I'm going to start with that. My axis of symmetry is negative 4, so we have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, positive 4. So zooming in, this was the -4 here. And I'm just going to draw an axis of symmetry that goes directly through that line. That's the axis of symmetry. Okay? And the vertex is going to be -4, -1, right? So I need to make my lines for, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4, -1, with this being -1 here, 4, -1 is right here, about, right? Just following, that's -1 and that's -4. So this is 4, -1. I'm sorry, -4. Why do I keep saying 4, -1? -4, -1. Okay. So there goes my vertex and the axis of symmetry, and we said it has to open upward. So I'm going to make sure that this is the bottom of my parabola, that point. The vertex has to be the bottom of the parabola. And make sure it opens upward, and that the axis of symmetry will be perfectly in the middle of the parabola. This should be perfectly in the middle, or as perfect as you can make it. It's just a sketch. And that's done. Number 1 is done. Okay? All right, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stick to the even problems, and you are going to complete the odds on your own. So that's going to leave you doing number 3, number 5, number 7, and number 9, all on your own. All right, number 2. With number 2, notice now the A is -1. So this is going to open downward because it's negative. Remember, if your A is negative, it opens down. Now let's go ahead and find the axis of symmetry. The equation is x is -b over 2a. So x is equal to the opposite of whatever the b is. Okay? The b is 10. So I'm doing -10 over 2 times a. And we already wrote earlier that a is -1. So we have -10 divided by -2 gives us a +5. So the axis of symmetry, is x equals 5. Was I writing numbers? Oh, goodness. Quick intermission. Go back to number 1. Axis of symmetry is a line, not just a number. It's a complete line. So it needs an equation. Straight lines have equations. -4. X equals -4. Okay? All right. Back to number 2. Okay. Now let's find the vertex. If you remember the previous example, you do have that x is 5. So you just have to plug that x into your equation. So we have y is equal to, let me see, y equals -x squared plus 10x minus 23. I'm going to replace every x with 5. So we have y equals -5 to the second power plus 10 parentheses 5 minus 23. Again, plugging that directly into the EOC calculator. Let's clear our last. We have -5 to the second power plus 10 parentheses 5. What was it? Minus 23. And you can see what I typed in, and the answer is 2. So y equals 2. Put those together to get that the vertex is 5, 2. Lastly, you just want to do your sketch, remembering that it's going to open downward this time. So with the sketch, make a coordinate plane. It's just a sketch, so don't worry about it being super straight. The key is that you know what the graph would look like if you saw it on the test. Okay? We have our axis of symmetry being x equals 5, so I'm going to draw some lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make this further out. 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I decided to do 5 by 7. Okay. So x equals 5 would be a vertical line. Again, axis of symmetry is a vertical line, up and down, going through 5. So this is 5 here. So we're doing a vertical line going through that point right there. Okay. Gonna have to move that over because it's not. There we go. Okay. That's the axis of symmetry. Now the vertex is 5, 2. So that is right here. 5, 2 would be here. Here's my 2 and here's my 5. Okay. All right. So again, remember we did say it's going to be opening downward this time. So I'm just going to kind of sketch a parabola that opens downward and try to make it even on both sides. And that's good enough. We've got our vertex and we've got our axis of symmetry. And I like to call it or shorten it as AOS. Okay. Let's move on to number 4. Okay, with number 4, A is 4 this time. Again, that's still a positive number, so it will open upward. For the axis of symmetry, we're doing negative B over 2A. So whatever B is, we're doing the opposite, and we're dividing it by 2 times A. So our B is 8. So I'm doing negative 8 divided by 2 times 4. So we have negative 8 divided by positive 8. So the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. Okay. Again, for the vertex, you do have to plug that negative 1 into your equation. So copy the equation first, 4x squared plus 8x minus 1. Zooming in. Here we go. We're replacing every x with negative 1. So y equals 4, parentheses, negative 1 to the second power plus 8, parentheses, negative 1 minus 1. Again, we're just going to plug that directly into the EOC calculator. Clear our last input. 4 parentheses, clear. 4 parentheses, negative 1, second power, plus 8 parentheses, negative 1, minus 1. And as you can see here, this is what I typed in. And the answer is negative 5. So y equals negative 5. Put those two the x and y together to get that the vertex is parentheses -1 comma -5. Now let's move on to our sketch. Y-axis, x-axis, we're drawing an axis of symmetry at -1, with our vertex being -1, -5. So I'm going to make 5 marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Axis of symmetry is x equals -1, which is right here. -1 is right there. So here goes my axis of symmetry. Make sure it's actually on -1. Move it over just a little bit. There we go. And then plot -1, -5. So -1, -5 would be right here, because this right here is -5. So -1, -5 is there. And then recall earlier we said it would open upward. So I'm just going to sketch my graph opening upward and try to make it look perfectly even on both sides of the axis of symmetry. You can see I tried my best to make this side look exactly like this side. One is not too far away from the line as the other one is. Other side is, okay? All right, number 6. A is -3. So this is going to open downward because it is negative. Let's find our axis of symmetry now. We have A, B, and C. So x is equal to -b over 2a. You're going to put the opposite of your b value. Our b value is -24. So the opposite of -24 is +24. Because the formula says to use the opposite of whatever b is. Okay? So we're doing +24 divided by 2 times a, and a is -3. So now we have 24 divided by -6, which equals -4. So x equals -4. In order to find the vertex, you just plug that into the quadratic equation. So y equals -3x to the second minus 24x minus 42. Zooming in here, we're replacing all of the x's with -4. So we're going to say y equals -3 parentheses -4 to the second power minus 24 parentheses -4 minus 42. And I know I keep saying parentheses here, but this is multiplication, right? If you don't see a sign, this is multiplication. This is being multiplied, okay? Only thing is here, the reason why we're using the EOC calculator is because, number one, it's just simpler, but secondly, a lot of people make the mistake where they do -3 times -4 and then raise it to the second power. No. No, no, no. You are supposed to do -4 to the second power first, and then you will get 16. You multiply 16 by -3 afterwards. That is the correct order. According to PEMDAS, you are supposed to be doing exponents before you do multiplication. So that is a common error. So just to avoid that error, plug the entire thing into the EOC calculator. So we are doing -3 parentheses -4 second power. I forgot the problem. Minus 24 parentheses -4 minus 42. Here you can see exactly what I typed in. That's why I love the online EOC calculator. This is the exact calculator that's going to be on the screen during your EOC. And the answer is 6. So y is equal to 6. You put those two together to get that the vertex is -4, 6. We're now going to make a sketch here of our parabola. Here's the x-axis, here's the y-axis. Looks like the highest number we have here is 6. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, no. Sorry. Maybe I'll edit that out. If you hear it, then I didn't edit it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's why this is a sketch, because this scale is very off. Like, some of these ticks are very far. Some of them are close together. So anyways, it's just a sketch so that you will learn how to identify the graphs on your own when you see them on the EOC, like how to find them. You would just find them by figuring out what the vertex is and figuring out what the axis symmetry is, and then you'll know which graph to click, like if it was a multiple choice question. Okay. X equals -4 is going to be this line here. This is the x equals -4 line. And the vertex is at -4, 6. So that's up here, because this is -4, of course, and then here's my 6 right there. So that's, let me erase this and make some space. So that's the 6 right here. Okay. And then earlier we did say that this is going to open downward because the first coefficient was negative. So just going to open up downward and try to make it even on both sides. Looking good. That is done. Finally, we're going to do number 8. This one's a little bit different. In this case, we have that our A is 1, which is positive, so it's going to open upward. But if you notice, we don't have a BX term. There's no middle term. You just have A and C. So with that being said, we're going to say that B is 0 and C is -3. Okay. So with B being 0, right? And you're looking for the axis of symmetry, x is -b over 2a. Recall that dividing 0 by something, it won't change. If I'm putting 0 here for B, it doesn't matter what's underneath, right? It's still going to be 0. Okay, so the axis of symmetry is x equals 0. So anytime you don't have a middle term, anytime there's no bx term, the axis of symmetry is 0. Okay? All right, and then now you'll see what happens with the vertex. This value here, -3, is actually going to be the y-coordinate of your vertex. So the vertex is going to be 0, -3. And let's watch how that happened. If I plug in 0 for x, right? First of all, x squared minus 3, right? And then I plug in 0. So y equals 0 squared minus 3. Well, 0 to the second power is still 0. Subtracting 3 from 0, you get that y is negative 3, like we said. So shortcut to when you don't have a bx term is that you're going to get 0 for your axis of symmetry. And that constant number, whatever the constant is, that's going to be the next coordinate in your vertex. A little shortcut. Which leads me to actually, let's go back to number 7 and do number 7 as well. Because if you notice in number 7, you don't have a C term with number 7. So quickly let me sketch number 8. Sorry for jumping around, but quickly let me sketch number 8, and then I'm going to go back to number 7, and that will be our last problem. So here's my y-axis, x-axis. We're going to negative 3, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's just do 4 just for fun. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So remember that the axis of symmetry is actually x is 0, which is the y-axis. When x is 0, that's all of the numbers on the y-axis, right? So that's our axis of symmetry, and then we're plotting 0, negative 3, which is here. Okay. So the parabola is going to be on both sides of the y-axis. And try to make it as even as possible. And that's done. Okay. Going back to number 7 as our last problem. For number 7, we have that A is negative 1. So negative means it's going to open down, because it's negative. B is 4. And C is 0. Okay. So let's watch what happens there. Axis of symmetry, x is negative b over 2a. We're doing the opposite of whatever our b is. And since b is 4, it's negative 4 on top. On the bottom, you're doing 2 times a, which is 2 times negative 1. So negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. So x equals 2. Plugging in the 2 here, we're going to copy y equals negative x squared plus 4x. We're going to plug in the 2 for the x. So y equals negative parentheses 2 to the second power plus 4 times 2. Okay. Again, we're just going to type that directly into the EOC calculator. Nothing special is going to happen here. Sorry. So we had negative parentheses 2 to the second power. Was it plus? Plus 4 times 2. And that equals 4. Okay, so I got y equals 4. So the vertex is 2, 4. For our last sketch, one, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We are plotting x equals 2. That's a positive 2, so that's here. Positive 2. Move it over just a little bit to be on the line that I made. And then 2, 4. The coordinates 2, 4 right here. That is 2, 4. Recall earlier that we said the parabola will open downward. So I'm just going to sketch a parabola that opens downward, making it as even as I possibly can. And number 7 is done. So that actually only leaves you at number 3, number 5, and number 9, and then you can move on to the homework problem.